Hey guys, welcome back to Just a Geek in the Garage. Today I want to continue my kind of Tools 101 series with ratchets. For people that, probably know what a ratchet is, but didn't know there are so many different variations, what they're used for, things like that. Again, quick disclaimer, if you're a professional, kind of advanced DIYer, things like that, this is a video you might want to skip just because it's probably going to be very redundant information for you. But, stick around, see if you like this content. And if you have any questions, please let me know. So let's kind of start off with these different kinds of ratchets. And I'm actually, as I'm doing this, I'm going to add one more type as well. So basically, as we are looking at these ratchets, for the most part, they're all going to be a quarter inch ratchets, with the exception of this guy, just because I don't have a 1/4 inch version of it. And, all of these ratchets or different styles come in, 1/4 inch, which is going to be your smallest, 3/8, which is going to be kind of the one that's used most common by most people, and 1/2 inch, which is much larger, and then they even go up to 3/4 inch, things like that, and even bigger, depending on the situation. But let's start off with these mostly 1/4 inch ratchets, and just to kind of show you the different styles that you can expect. So, basically all of you, or most of you will probably know just what a basic ratchet looks like. Something like this, maybe all metal, just very basic. Is reversible. You put a socket on there, and then there you go. That's it. It's just a simple ratchet to tighten or loosen nuts and bolts, things like that. So can't get much more basic than a simple ratchet like this. From here, we're gonna see there's a lot of different variations on that particular design, and why are there so many different variations, and are they going to be useful for you? A lot of the stuff that you see is going to be designed to kind of work around obstacles when you're working in a car or a tight space or what have you. Where for a general homeowner, something like this, a single ratchet, you'll be fine. Because you're kind of building out in the open or fixing out in the open. But when you're in a car and when you're in an engine bay, sometimes there's just something in your way that you have to get around. So the next kind of example is going to be this swivel head. So again, function is very similar to the first one. Let me grab a socket here. Right, you can just use it just like a normal ratchet like this. But the nice thing about this is you can actually flip it out straight like this, and now it becomes basically like a nut driver. So you can use it almost like a screwdriver. So if you're working on some bolts that you need to get in there quickly, you can do that. And then at the very end, if you want to kind of torque it down, you can turn it back into a traditional ratchet. Something like this also has what's called a quick release. A quick release is simply a button, and that button, as you can see here, just kind of helps eject the socket. Quick release are both good and bad depending on how you look at it. It's great because it holds the socket in much better. So it's you're not going to have where you take the socket, the ratchet away, and the socket stays on the bolts. And you just press the button to release it. The drawback is, since there's a big hole in the anvil itself, it makes it a little bit weaker and potential to break versus a standard anvil like this that's just solid metal. All right, next up we're going to go to a flex head. So you just saw the swivel. The flex head, basically what it does is it's flexible this way. There's some like this that are just regular flex heads, and there's also locking flex heads. A locking flex head is going to be something more similar to this, where there's a button or some kind of switch, and you can lock it in position. It's not going to move. Where something like this is going to continuously move. You can't lock it in one particular position. And something like this is, imagine you're working on, let's say a hot engine or something, and you need to get your hand away from the engine. You can have it, kind of angled up like this to move your hand away. And that's, one of the reasons why you would go with a flex head like this. So something like this is actually probably one of my most used. It's much longer, as you can see, than a regular ratchet. Has that flexibility, gives you leverage. So something like this is going to be one of my favorite go-tos. From there, kind of in the same vein, as far trying to get something out of the way, is you have these indexing ratchets. And the indexing ratchet, basically you can have the head in any position that you need and lock it down. So let's say if you're trying to get around something in an engine bay, you can do so and still be able to ratchet, or you can keep them loose, right, and basically turn it into like a speed ratchet as well. So something like this is great to use, and I try to pick this up whenever I can, just because it makes life a little bit easier. All right, so those are those type of ratchets. So let's go into something like this, right? You have these Pittsburgh ratchets. So if you're the type of person that wants to have different sizes but don't want to have a lot of tools, they have this right here where it gives you 3/8 on one side, 1/4 inch on the other side, and it also gives you, the ability to extend it, and it can basically lock down in multiple different positions to give you leverage. So this is great if you want to just kind of have one tool in your tool bag that can accommodate both the 1/4 inch and the 3/8. They also sell something like this that has a 3/8 and a 1/2 inch as well. The biggest drawback, however, is because it's pretty bulky. So if you're working in a tight space, something like this definitely is not going to work for you. Next up is going to be these composite ratchets. So these ones are not made of metal, but so what that does is two things. One, they are much lighter. So if you're using it a lot, you're going to have a lot less fatigue using something like this. And supposedly, if you're working on live electricity, something like this will not shock you. Similar to like the pliers and things like that are safe to use around live electricity, so it shouldn't conduct for you. So that's what something like this is useful for. Other than that, it functions just like a regular ratchet. Next up is you have these that are a flexible head ratchet, but not only is the head flexible like some of the other ones that we saw, but half of the handle is as well. So if you really need to get into some kind of weird space or what have you, something like this can be useful. Honestly, don't grab this guy very often, but when you need it, and it's good to have it. Next up is something like this. This is a super thin. It's almost like the size of a wrench versus a ratchet, and it's double-ended. They can 1/4 inch on one side, 3/8 on the other, and it's flexible head. So if you're trying to get into some really tight spaces, something like this works very well. Moving on, let's look at this guy. This is the famous meme tool that they just kind of updated part of the newest version, like the XL version of this, that people have not been liking. Because it no longer has what's called the pass-through design. This one right here, if you can see, is just kind of big hole right there, and you can put something like this on there, and this will hold if I can find my socket, it will hold a socket on there. And this one is a locking flex head, so you can kind of move the position wherever you want and lock it in that position. And then also you can take this out, and any 1/4 inch bits, Phillips or what have you, will fit in there as well. So this is great when you're working. I use this a lot when you're working on the interior of cars and things like that. And then you have something like this little like wheel, basically, where you can put a ratchet, and it's like a finger spinner. You can do that, especially if you don't have a lot of space. Something like this is going to be great. And then last up, while they don't technically, they call it a torque wrench, is going to be something like this. And basically what this does, and I've had questions about torque wrenches in the past, is it looks like a regular ratchet, right? It's kind of like a huge version of this guy. The main difference is, if you see down here, it's going to have all these different numbers. And what this does is, let's say you are working on, changing a car's tires. Cars, lug nuts have a specific torque value that you need. They might say, hey, you need to torque it to 100 foot-pounds. And so what you do is you basically use whatever ratchet or tool or impact that you're going to use to get the tires tight, and then the final tightening, you're going to put the mark that you want, say 100 foot-pounds, put it on here, and then when you go to tighten it, you'll feel a click, and when it clicks, it means that you've hit that particular mark of 100 foot-pounds. This particular one, because it's a 1/4 inch, does inch pounds, so it's for things that are much smaller. But the bigger brothers that are 3/8 or 1/2 inch, are the ones that are ranked in foot-pounds. So that's basically what a torque wrench is. It's just making sure that you're hitting the specifications the manufacturer requires, because the worst thing you can do is have a lug nut or what have you on there, and it be loose and come off while you're driving on the freeway. And then when you're building things like engines, inside the engines there's very, very specific torque values that you have to do for certain things. So it's very important to use something like this when you're working on something sensitive, versus just hand tightening it and hoping for the best. So again, this is not an exhaustive list of every single ratchet that's out there. There's definitely going to be other variations that you see. Let me know what ratchets do you guys like. What other ones that I didn't mention are out there. Please leave that in the comments below. If you'd like to see any kind of a deep dive or comparison of one ratchet versus the other, I have a few brands in pretty much all of the ones that we just talked about. So tell me what you guys think, and then thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe.